Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. So Trump put the Iranians on a 15-day clock as he scrambled the USS Ford and all sorts of assets to the Middle East in a fairly prodigious show of force. The Iranian Foreign Minister, Abbas Araghchi, went on Morning Joe because he had some propaganda to offer that he knew wouldn't get much pushback. So he got it out, saying there is no military solution to the Iranian nuclear program. What Iranian nuclear program, one might ask. But anyway, here's what he said.
Well, we had a very good talks a few days ago in Geneva, and we were able to discuss the questions related to our nuclear program and to the U.S. sanctions. And we agreed on a set of principles or guiding principles for our negotiation and how a deal can look like. And we then were asked to prepare a draft of a possible deal. So next time that we meet, we can, go into that draft, start negotiating about its language, and hopefully come to a conclusion. That is the way ahead of us, and I think that is a normal way of any international negotiations, and we agreed to go into that path. One thing I have to emphasize is that there is no military solution for Iran's nuclear program. That has been tested last year, and there were a huge attack on our facilities, on our, they killed and assassinated our scientists, but they couldn't kill our nuclear program. Why? Because it is developed by ourselves, by our scientists. This is a technology developed by us, belongs to us. And it cannot be destroyed by bombings, militarily. The only solution is diplomacy. This is why the U.S. is back.
Well, you can have technological capacity, but when you try to implement it, it gets blown up. Then that's not really a viable program, is it? If it maintains it, if it stays in an inert phase, then I don't know what kind of nuclear program you have. And I guess fronting that you have one is provocative. It doesn't really speak to diplomacy given the previous experience, right? So it's an interesting representation that Mr. Araghchi made. For more on this, please be joined by Stephen Bucci, who served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official, now a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thanks for joining us, as always. Appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I have to say, I think the foreign minister might be a little more believable if at the same time there weren't other leaders in the country back, death to America, death to the great Satan and the little Satan. It's like, okay, how many times can you guys talk out of both sides of your face?
Well, that's just a little. That's just a little.
Problem for them.
Yeah, that's just a little gamesmanship in advance of substantive diplomatic talks. Sure.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I think they're going to find that Donald Trump and the team that he sends to this they're not talking to John Kerry anymore. They need to understand that, and they have bent a little bit. They're no, we want to make a business deal with you. You can make lots of money with us.
Yeah.
We don't want a problem. We just want to do business. No, they do not, and they think that will trick President Trump, and I just don't think it will.
Well, what's the play to represent like they have a viable nuclear program? Number one, do they? And if they don't, then what's Aragachi doing there?
Personally, I do not think they have one right now, but they're trying to reconstitute it. And that's why, we told them before, okay, we knocked this down. If you try and put it back together, we'll be back. And they, are trying to put it back together. I think the intelligence we're getting is valid. It is the human intelligence is largely from the Israelis, but we have corroborating other ints out there that are telling us, hey, it's time to move again. And they're not willing to back down. So if they don't, they'll have to be knocked back.
So do you think we're going to play whack-a-mole, basically?
No, I think you're going to see different kinds of strikes. You'll see more targeted strikes against nuclear and ballistic missile-related facilities. But I think you'll also see strikes against the IRGC Quds Force headquarters and their barracks, and we're going to, I believe, try and take that pin out from under them, which is their biggest regime protection method, is the repressive power of the IRGC. I think that one's on the table this time, not just the leader of it, but the entire organization is going to get hit. And I don't think they'll be able to survive that.
So you think that, the strike is coming, and if they're on a 15-day clock, maybe that means they're actually on a 7-day clock.
I'm more inclined to the 7 to 10 day limit. I don't think President Trump is going to get fobbed along for 50 days. I think that's delusional.
And this is ultimately, is the philosophy of the administration, do you think, as with Venezuela? Look, the previous regimes in America, previous presidents like Biden and Obama, they were not America firsters. They didn't believe in American exceptionalism. We're just another nation in the community of nations, too polite, no real commitment to dealing with malevolent forces in this world that are directly at odds with America's security and economic interests, and a little bit of elbow grease, and we can take these regimes out, whether it's Venezuela or Tehran. We did it in Caracas. We can do it in Tehran.
I think the form will probably be different. Going in, arresting Maduro, that was one thing.
Yeah.
And now everybody else is going, no, we're happy to make a deal with you. Don't worry. But with the mullahs, I think you're going to have to set the conditions so the Iranian people can drive them out of power. And I think if we hit the Quds Force hard, I think that will be the tipping point, because I think there's a lot of police and military that once the Quds Force is done, they will go, you know what, we really didn't like these guys anyway. We'll go with you, people in the street. And I think that's when this house of cards will fall.
Speaking of which, we're 6 weeks removed from deposing Maduro in Venezuela. What is the state of play there?
They're working the whole oil issue. We're controlling the oil. We're saying, no, you're not sending any to Cuba anymore. Things like that. To my knowledge, we've not made a great deal of progress as far as determining who is going to be the long-term rulers of Venezuela. It's not America. We don't want to rule Venezuela, but we want people in there that are not going to be criminals. So we're still moving in that direction. I'm pretty sure that Secretary Rubio's got his eye on the ball there and is making sure that that's moving in the right direction, or I think we'd be hearing a lot more about it.
And ultimately, the play would still be to settle whatever needs to be settled, starting with, by the way, the full release of those political prisoners, which I don't believe has happened yet. There are still 600 or 700 that are languishing in prisons in Caracas that should be freed, from my understanding. But you're really trying to set the conditions for an election and for self-determination by the Venezuelan people, aren't you?
Exactly. That's the goal. That is easier to do in Venezuela than it would be to do fully in Iran, because the Venezuelans, even though they haven't had a true free election in a long time, they have the infrastructure for elections set up. They've used them before. All we need to do is get the right people in place who are willing to conduct the elections correctly, and then I think you'll see the will of the Venezuelan people played out. We'd like to see that in Iran as well, but I think there's a little more to be done there because of the depth of the repression that the mullahs and their minions have had on that country for way longer than the Venezuelans have had the problem.
Our neighbor to the south, Mexico, Mexican military took out El Mencho, which means the Mencho. Actually, it means Lord of the Roosters, if you're scoring at home. He's the leader of the Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generacion, the biggest, baddest cartel in Mexico, I understand it now. He was taken out. The U.S. had a $15 million bounty on him. Taken out by military there, and now violence has ensued, including flights canceled to Puerto Vallarta because that region is, engulfed in flames and violence. But arguments made that the U.S. military, the Mexican military, which knew where El Mencho was the entire time, that they decided to move on him essentially under pressure from the United States and the Trump administration.
Yeah, that seems to be what the indicators show, that we didn't do it, but we were pushing the Mexicans to, hey, look, you got to take action. This is getting ridiculous. Unfortunately, this is the bad result. That those cartels are very heavily armed, very large in numbers. They've got little mini armies down there that can fight like heck. And while they're not religious fanatics like we see in Iran and places like that, they are wildly loyal to their cartels and are willing to do horrific things in their name. So this is going to be a tough fight, but I think it's one the Mexicans need to understand. They need to engage in, because their country has just been completely corrupted by the cartels in their midst, and they've got to get back to being a real government. They have not been that in a long time.
But the reality is, they regenerate, right? El Chapo goes down, El Mencho goes down, it's next one up. That doesn't decapitate effectively that cartel.
No, not in and of itself. It's a good place to start. There is some disruption when the leader of an organization like that is taken out. But if you don't follow it up with then attacking the next couple of levels who are all aspiring to be the next El Guapo or whatever they want to have, you gotta continue the action. Just killing the top guy is not anywhere near enough.
Now, last week, you made some representations that AOC didn't maybe have the foreign policy chops to be the president of the United States, and she has responded to you on that score, and I want you to hear her response and give you an opportunity to respond.
If you think that I don't understand foreign policy because out of hours of discourse about international affairs, I pause to think about one of the most sensitive geopolitical issues that currently exist on Earth, I'm afraid the issue is not my understanding, but rather the problem is perhaps you've gotten adjusted to a president that never thinks before he speaks.
Stephen, would you like to apologize?
No, not particularly. Look,
she's hoarse. She's hoarse from talking so much about the intricacies of Far Eastern geopolitics.
Yeah, and at the same time, she doesn't know that Venezuela is not south of the equator.
Details.
Or
Details.
it is, I mean, she's just. I'm sorry, she is not anywhere near as bright as she thinks she is. And on top of that, if you're going to the Munich Security Conference where you're going to talk about foreign policy issues, would you not have brushed up and had answers at least framed in your mind for all of the major foreign policy issues that challenge America and its European allies? She seemed completely surprised when they asked her questions about things. I mean, did they think they were just going to be like, Democrat Party events here where everybody just slaps themselves on the back and says "Orange Man bad" and applauds? I don't know. But if that was her audition to run for president, I would save her money on the campaign because I don't think it's going to be worth the investment.
Stephen Bucci served America for 3 decades as an Army Special Forces officer and top Pentagon official, now a visiting fellow in the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for Foreign Policy Studies. Stephen, thank you as always.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, and I'll look forward to talking to you next week.
Yes, sir. And Stephen joined us in Chicago's Morning Answer.
The more you listen, the more you'll know. This is Chicago's Morning Answer. Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank, a bank where relationships still matter. Signature Bank knows your name and your story.